Have you ever put on an album and it just felt different? Like it wasn't just a bunch of songs, but more like a movie or a really good book? Well, that's the magic of what we could call the sonic novel. Today, we're going to trace the incredible story of how the album went from being just a product to a complete immersive work of art.
And this quote right here, it really gets to the heart of it. This is about that magical shift, when artists stopped just trying to sell us 3-minute singles and started building entire worlds. Suddenly, albums had plots, they had characters, they had themes, all woven into the music itself. It was a total game changer.
So how did this even become possible? Well, it all started with a huge leap in technology. For decades, music was basically stuck on the 78 RPM single. We got about 3 minutes, that's it. But then, in 1948, the LP record shows up, and suddenly artists had this sprawling 40-minute canvas to play with. This wasn't just more time, it was an invitation to dream bigger.
Okay, before we dive into any deeper, let's just get on the same page. What is a concept album? It's definitely not just a playlist. It's an album where every single track is like a chapter in a larger story. They're all connected by a single theme, a consistent mood, or even a full-blown plot. The whole thing is designed to be experienced as one piece of art, from start to finish. So who do you think was the first artist to really grab this new format by the horns? Some wild rock and roller? A folk protest singer? Nope, it was actually a crooner whose career was kind of on the downswing, and he was looking for a comeback. We're talking about the one and only Frank Sinatra, maybe the most unlikely pioneer you could imagine.
In 1955, with his masterpiece In the Wee Small Hours, Sinatra pretty much wrote the rulebook. He created this singular, heartbreaking journey through loneliness. Every song, every lush arrangement was carefully chosen to keep you in that specific feeling. Even the cover art matched the sound perfectly. He proved for the first time that an album could be a sustained, emotional deep dive.
Okay, so Sinatra gives us the mood album. The foundation is officially laid. But this opens up a brand new question, a really big one that would drive music for the next decade. If an album can make you feel one thing from start to finish, could it also tell you one complete, unified story?
And that question leads us straight into Act 2, the 1960s. This decade was like an artistic arms race. You had these musical giants in a friendly but super intense competition to constantly one-up each other, and in doing so, they pushed the album format into places no one had ever imagined.
And things moved fast. I mean, really fast. In '66, you have the Beach Boys releasing Pet Sounds, this incredibly deep psychological suite of songs about growing up. Then, just a year later, the Beatles fire back with Sgt. Pepper, where they pretend to be a totally different band, turning the album into a kind of theatrical show. And then in '69, The Who takes the final leap with Tommy, a full-on rock opera with a beginning, middle, and end. The ambition was just off the charts.
So, if the 60s were all about experimentation, the 70s were about total, absolute immersion. This was the golden age. This is when the concept album became this sprawling, epic experience. You could say that in the 70s, ambition had absolutely no limits.
The commitment artists had in this era was just on another level. Take David Bowie in 1972. He didn't just write some songs about an alien rock star named Ziggy Stardust. No, he became Ziggy Stardust. On stage, in interviews, he completely blurred the line between the music, the story, and his own identity. It was proof that an album's concept could literally jump off the record and come to life.
And then, then there was Pink Floyd. You really can't talk about the concept album without talking about them. They took everything that came before and just expanded it into the cosmos.
Just look at their masterpiece, The Dark Side of the Moon. It's basically the story of life itself. The album opens with a heartbeat, and it closes with a heartbeat. And in between, every track flows seamlessly into the next, exploring all the pressures that drive us crazy. You hear the ticking clocks of time, the ching-ching of money, the sounds of conflict. It's a perfect, endless loop. It was made to be heard in one sitting. And they didn't stop there. 6 years later, they gave us The Wall. It's this deeply personal story built around one powerful metaphor. Every bad thing that happens to the main character, war, a terrible school, a failed marriage, becomes just another brick in this massive wall he's building around himself. It was so huge, it wasn't just an album. It became a movie and one of the most legendary stage shows ever.
So what happened? As we got into the 80s, 90s, and then the streaming era, a lot of people said the album was dead. How could these long, complex stories possibly survive in a world of shuffling and singles? Well, it turns out the sonic novel is a lot tougher than people thought.
The torch just got passed to new artists and new genres.
I mean, even back in the 70s, Marvin Gaye's What's Going On showed how you could use the format for political activism. But today, it's artists in hip-hop and R&B who are really carrying the flame. Kendrick Lamar creates these incredible cinematic short films with his albums, and then you have someone like Beyoncé, crafting these deeply personal visual albums like Lemonade, where every song and video is another step on a journey. The format didn't die, it just evolved.
When you really boil it all down, from Sinatra's Lonely Nights to Pink Floyd's Cosmic Journeys, the goal of a great concept album is always the same. It asks for something that's pretty rare these days: our undivided attention. It's an invitation to stop scrolling, to turn off shuffle, and to just listen.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. In this age of endless distraction and streaming, what do we really get when we actually commit to an album? When we listen to it exactly the way the artist wanted us to, from the first track to the last? Maybe, just maybe, we don't just hear a story, we get to be a part of it.